Hi, it's Rob from Samara James. Today we are going to be looking at yellow diamonds. Now, a natural fancy yellow diamond can make a wonderful centerpiece for an engagement ring or piece of diamond jewellery. There are some really important points to consider. First of all, you want to make sure that it's a natural diamond with natural origin of colour and that it's graded by a reputable laboratory such as the GIA. Let's take a look at some of the other points that you need to think about. Many fancy yellow diamonds have been artificially treated to achieve their colour. These diamonds are far less valuable and actually often far less pretty in terms of the colour overtones versus a natural stone. So by insisting on a report from the GIA, you'll be able to see that the diamond is natural in terms of its colour origin. Another consideration is saturation, which essentially means how much colour is there. So we're looking at yellow diamonds, which is to do with the nitrogen content. In the colourless scale of stones, we start at Z and work our way all the way through to D, which is considered to be the most desirable, the rarest, and therefore the most valuable. It's devoid of nitrogen, so there's no yellow tinge. The more nitrogen in the diamonds, the less desirable and the less rare the stones are considered, through to X, Ys and Zs. On the other side of that scale, you work into fancy light diamonds, fancy light yellows. This increases through fancy yellow, fancy intense, and fancy vivid. At the top end of the scale, you've got maximum saturation, maximum rarity, and therefore maximum value. In effect, in colourful diamonds, the more colour there is and the more saturation there is, the more desirability and the more rarity. On the other side of the scale, in colourless stones, the less colour there is, the more desirable it is, the more valuable it is. This diamond is a GIA graded fancy light yellow stone. You can see there's quite clearly a yellow component, although it's quite faint in its appearance. By comparison, this diamond is a GIA graded fancy intense, and now the colour depth is far more pronounced and evident in its appearance. Unfortunately, whilst the GIA scale does help to make comparisons between individual colour grades, when you're looking at a specific grade of stone, there can be variation. For example, these two stones are both graded as fancy intense diamonds, however there's a noticeable difference in their appearance between the left and the right. There are other factors that will control how beautiful a stone looks and how attractive the colour is that aren't yet taken into account on the GIA report. These off-report factors, some of which we've considered in other videos, are really important to think about and will control value as well. This is why we always judge our diamonds with the naked eye, rather than depending solely upon the GIA's paperwork. To emphasise the difference between colourless and fancy intense yellow with a range in between, we actually have some stones on site. So let's take a closer look and view the range. Here we have a D-coloured stone, so this is considered to be completely colourless, devoid of any yellow tinge by the GIA. For comparison, this is a J-coloured stone which is just coming into the shot now. J-coloured stone is GIA graded as well, and is still considered to be higher than the average high street commercial quality. From a face-up perspective, as you can see, there is a fractional difference in the appearance of the two, although the difference in tinge is very, very small. Next, I'm going to introduce a stone which is graded as W to X. So for comparison, this is towards the lowest end of the colourless scale of stones. What's often considered as the less desirable range. You can see there is far more of a tinge of a tone to the stone, yet it still isn't in the fancy colour level. Finally, I've introduced a fancy intense yellow diamond. Absolutely beautiful, far more saturation of colour and therefore far more attractive as well. Just to summarise, on the left we have a D-coloured stone. This is graded by the GIA to be the highest in the colourless range and is therefore considered to be the rarest and most valuable. Next, we have a J. Lower down the scale in terms of colour saturation, but still very attractive and above what you'd consider as the average high street commercial quality. Thirdly, we have a WX. This is much further down the end of the scale, not considered to be as desirable, certainly not as rare, and therefore not as valuable. Continuing back up the scale, we'll finish with a fancy intense yellow diamond. Much more rare, much more valuable, and, as I hope you'd agree, much more attractive as well. Higher saturation creates a really attractive, beautiful diamond. If you have any questions with regards to fancy coloured diamonds, please feel free to leave a comment below, or alternatively get in contact. We are open 7 days a week and would be more than happy to help. Thanks very much for watching, and I will see you in our next video.